This conference will now be recorded.
Okay, so what we discussed yesterday, we understood within AP, we understood how to create vendor invoice, okay, using transaction FB60, right? Similarly, how to make payments to vendors using transaction F-53, okay? How to display the balances, display vendor balances. Do you remember what was the transaction code to display the vendor balance? FK10N, right? This was a transaction code to display the balances of the vendor. And in order to display the line items, how to display the line items? For vendors, it is FBL1N. This is the transaction code to display the balances of, display the line items of vendor. Same thing we have done for AR also. So in case of AR, how to create customer invoices instead of vendor invoices. We have seen how to create customer invoices using transaction FB70. How to make the payments to, or how to receive the payments from customers. So instead of making the payment, we are going to receive the payments from customers. So receive payments from customers. Okay, how we will receive? The transaction code is F-28 to receive the payments. How to display the customer balances? So instead of K,
D.
we will replace it with D, right? So it will become FD10N. And how to display the line items? So instead of 1, we will replace it with 5. FBL5N will give us the report on customer line items. Okay, so these are some of the things that we discussed yesterday. We again need to continue with AP and AR because we have still just started AP and AR. It is a very big module. So within AP and AR module, what we are going to discuss today is number 1. Yesterday we already had some basic discussion on payment terms, but we used the payment terms which are already available in the system. But today I'll show you how to create your own payment term based on your requirements. Okay, so we will start with the payment term. Number 2, I will show you the partial payments. So how are you going to receive the partial payments and how are you going to make the partial payments to your suppliers? Okay, number 3, we will discuss credit notes. So yesterday we just discussed how to process the invoice. Okay, so whenever supplier is sending you the invoice, you are booking that supplier invoice using transaction FP60. Okay, but what if your supplier has charged you more, or what if your supplier has given you the this material, the material is not good, the material is not of good quality, then definitely you would like to return that material, right? Definitely you would like to give the credit note to the vendor that we are not going to pay you the entire amount, we will be only able to pay you partial amount, right? So let's say vendor has charged you 1000 USD, but you agreed that no, 1000 USD is not the price that I'm going to pay you. I'm only going to pay you 900 USD. So what you need to do, you need to first book the invoice of 1000 and then you need to book the credit note of 100. Okay, so anyways, we will talk about that separately. So we also need to understand how to process the credit notes in SAP system. Okay, so at least these 3 things we will try to see, and if time permits, we will go for some further activities also in AP and AR. Okay, so let's start with the payment terms. Just give me a minute. Okay, so now let's try to understand how this payment terms works in SAP. Okay, so yesterday, if you remember, we were trying to create a vendor invoice and customer invoice. So if I go for transaction FB60 or FB70, screen clearly?
I think there is some disturbance, Vikram.
It seems little bit slow today.
Now it's fine.
In the voice also?
Now it's
Are you
fine.
facing disturbance in voice also?
No, no,
A little bit.
Okay, there's some
You're,
network issue, I think.
yeah, you're just a bit delayed.
Okay, yes. So yesterday, if you remember, when we were booking the vendor invoice, so whenever I'm entering the vendor number here, so let's say this was my vendor, this was my invoice date. Okay, here I was entering the invoice number, right? And here I was entering the amount. Okay, now how the system will determine the due date? Due date was getting determined by going on to this payment tab. Sorry, this company code is different. So if I want to change the company code, I have to click on this company code button and I need to select my company code, which is ABCI. Okay, so again, I will enter the vendor, invoice date, invoice number, amount, and then in order to determine the due date, I'll go to the payment tab. Now it is saying posting period 8/2019 is not open. So why it is going for posting period 8? Someone has closed, I think. So let's do this posting date on the 10th month itself, just to understand this concept. Okay, so if I go for payment term, click enter. Sorry, I am not using the correct system. Our system is 800 client, right? Not 400.
Vikram, I have a quick question from yesterday's session.
Yes, tell
Is
me.
there any difference in from ECC to S/4HANA to entering the invoices?
No, invoice and payments, whatever we are doing, F-53, FB60, these are all same. There is no change. Change was
Okay.
only in the creation of customer and vendor. We
Oh.
discussed that, business partner, right?
Yeah.
Otherwise, in AP and AR, there are not much changes compared to ECC.
Okay. Thank you.
Okay, so wherever there is change, I will make sure I will explain you both, like how the things are happening in ECC and how the things will happen in S4.
Sure. Thank you.
Okay, so if I now go to payment, okay, so this is where we were entering the payment term. Now the question is how these payment terms are already available in the system. So even when you go for a first kind of implementation, when you are your customer was not using SAP at all, by default in each and every system you will be able to see some of the payment terms. Now in this particular case, I'm able to see 50 entries. You can see there are 50 payment terms which are already created. Okay, now this 50 are they created by us? Have we created this 50 payment terms? The answer is no. Some of them are provided by SAP, and some of them, maybe when you are practicing or I am practicing, I can also create my payment terms. Okay, so the question is where I can go. Where is that configuration where I can go and I create my own payment terms according to my requirements? Okay, so in order to create a new payment term, obviously payment term is a configuration. So for all the configurations, where do we go in SAP? Where are we going to perform the configurations?
SPR.
SPRO, right? SPRO is responsible for all the configurations. So I'll go to IMG. Within IMG, I'll go to financial accounting. Within financial accounting, we are talking about AR and AP. Okay, within AR and AP, we are discussing business transactions, booking the invoices, making the payments. These are business transactions, right? So within business transactions, let's go for incoming invoices. Okay, so although this is common, this is incoming invoice as well as outgoing invoice, but let's click on this incoming invoice and you can see maintains terms of payment. Okay, so this is the configuration which will allow you to modify the existing payment term, deleting the existing payment term, or creating a new payment term. So you can display, you can change, you can create new, or you can delete the existing payment terms from this particular screen. Okay, what is the transaction code? If you click on this, you'll be able to see the transaction code on the here. Just give me a minute. Yeah, it is not showing transaction code because we are going through SPRO. So how to identify the transaction code? I already told you last time. Go to additional information, display key, and IMG activity. And the last 4 digits, what you are able to see is your transaction code. So in this particular case, it is transaction OBB8. Last 4 digits are OBB8. Okay, transaction OBB8 will allow you to manage the payment terms. Okay, it was not 50 actually, it was 28. So why it was showing 50? Because it was considering this as 2 lines. So there are overall 28 payment terms which are created already. Okay, now I want to create a new one. I want to create a new payment term, which is let's first understand what exactly we want to create. See, I want to create a payment term. There is one vendor who agreed that if I make the payment in 5 days, within 5 days, then he will give me 10% discount. Okay, if I make the payment within 15 days, then he will give me only 2% discount. Okay, and in any ways, I need to make the payment by 30 days. Okay, and if I'm making payment before 30 days but after 15 days, then I'll not be able to get any discount. So these are the 3 different things I need to enter in the system. I need to tell the system that there's a payment term. If I make the payment in less than 5 days, then I will get this much discount. If I make the payment in less than 15 days, then I'll get this much discount. And if I make the payment in less than this days, then definitely there will not be any discount. But if I make the payment after this date, what will happen? If I make the payment after 30 days, then what is going to happen? Supplier may charge
Interest.
interest, right? We don't need to enter the interest in the payment terms, but I'm just giving you this example. Supplier may charge interest. Okay, so this is something which we want to set up in the system. How are we going to do that? So I will click on new payment term. There is a new entry button here. Okay, and let's say payment term is ABC1. Okay, it's just for our understanding that our payment terms are starting with ABC. Okay, whatever text you want to provide or whatever explanation you want to provide. So I'm just saying 5 days you will get 10%. If you make the payment in 15 days, then you will get 2%, and otherwise it is 30 days. Okay, so I'm just whatever description you want to provide, it is your own explanation, whatever is suitable for you. Now, here you need to specify that this payment term, is it applicable only for vendors or for customers also? So simple, if I just keep this payment term for vendors, then I'll be only able to use this payment term in case of AP invoices. I will not be able to use this payment term in AR. Okay, because this payment term is only related to vendor, not related to customer. Okay, so based on your requirement, there is no hard and fast rule that whether you should tick this or not. It totally depends upon which is your supplier. Sorry, it totally depends upon whether you want to use this payment term for suppliers as well as customers, or only for customers, or only for vendors. Right, so I'm keeping it open for both customer as well as vendor. Now, baseline date calculation. Okay, so baseline date calculation means what? There are some companies. What is a baseline date? First of all, let's understand what is a baseline date. Baseline date means date from which your credit period will start. Okay, I'll give you one example. So I'm booking the invoice. I'm entering the invoice date, I'm entering the posting date, and by default system will automatically pick the entry date also. So if I am entering the posting date, as 31st of October. Sorry, document date as 31st of October. Posting date as 3rd of November. And let's say entry date is 4th of November. Now, how will the system know that 5 days from what? 5 days from posting date, or 5 days from invoice date, or 5 days from the entry date?
No, it
That is
should be
very
the date of
important,
the
right?
receipt. It's from the date of the receipt. It comes internally, right? It should come internally from stock or somewhere or packing slip or whatever. I'm sorry.
No. I'm talking about, see, vendor invoice will not come from stock. Vendor invoice is something, the physical document that is sent to you from your vendor, right?
Yes.
So just take an example. I sent you the training invoice. Okay, and I told you to make the payment in 5 days.
Yeah.
Okay. Now in my invoice, I have written today's date. Okay. You received this invoice tomorrow. Okay, on 4th of November. You are booking on 5th of November. So how the system will know that 5 days from what?
But
5
it
days.
depends. So sorry.
Yeah.
I thought
Yes,
like
it depends.
it depends on like, you know, for a service you can pay upfront, you can pay before, let's say, a class like a training or something. But in terms of goods, generally it's when the goods are received, like you have acknowledged the receipt of the goods, and
Mm-hmm.
then your calculation of payment, like, you know,
Mm-hmm.
pay like, you know, creditors payment terms starts from the date of receipt.
Okay. Let's
And
say,
that's
let's
that's that's
say,
my general understanding.
yes. So let's now go with your example. So let's talk about goods. So you received the goods on 31st of October. Okay. You received the goods on 31st of October, but your vendor has still not sent you the invoice. Then how can you start your credit period? If the invoice, see, normally that calculation should start from the invoice when the invoice was raised. Your vendor has sent the goods, but he forgot to send you invoice for next 5 days. So can he charge interest on that? If I tell you that I am giving you the goods, you received the goods, but I still not sent you the invoice, then it is not your responsibility to pay. It is my responsibility to send you the
Yes,
invoice first, right?
yes.
So, so in short, I'm not, see, there can be various views here. We are not saying what is right, what is wrong. But
Yeah, yeah.
in
Let's just
SAP,
SAP, yeah.
yeah, in SAP, there are only 3 dates that we can enter here, right? In our vendor invoice. Whenever we are booking the vendor invoice, we don't have the option of uh, what is the good receipt date, because there might be the good receipt, there might be the service receipt, right? We can only enter 3 days here: invoice date, posting date, and entry date.
Mhm.
There is some background noise. So out of these 3 dates, which date should be considered as my baseline date? That is a question. Okay, and again, there can be various views here, that someone will say, okay, consider the invoice date. Some other companies will say, no, consider the posting date. Okay, third company may say, no, consider the entry date. Okay, so totally depends upon the customer's requirement, and that is the reason SAP has kept it open. Okay, so you can see these are the 4 options here. So you can tell the system that, okay, whenever you are deciding the date from which my payment term should start, you can say no default. No default means it will by default pick the document date, or maybe you have to enter it manually that this is my baseline date. Okay, second option is posting date. So if you tell the system that, okay, start the calculation from the posting date onwards, then it will start from the posting date. If you say document date, it will start from document date, and if you say entry date, it will start from entry date. Okay, so we will see one example of all. So this
Vikram,
is the
can I
default for
interject?
baseline date.
Can I interject?
Yes, please.
I have a question. Since this is an ERP, right?
Mm-hmm.
And eh, when, like, let's say, I'm not talking about service, just general goods. When they have
Mm-hmm.
given the goods receipt note or whatever packing slip, blah, 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 the guy who receives it, he would also be entering it in his inventory or stock or something, and some kind of number would be generated, and the date it would come up
Right.
there in his system. So if it is
Right.
integrated, shouldn't it be coming up in the financial thing? Like when I get
No,
the
see,
invoice?
no, there are two different things. One is you are saying goods receipt. Okay, what example you are giving is goods receipt. So whenever the
Yes.
material is received in the stock, the person is posting the goods receipt, and
Yes.
then the invoice receipt. So this is GRIR, or a GRIR, right?
That's correct.
So GR is good receipt, IR is invoice receipt.
That's
So
correct.
definitely in the integrated environment, system captures everything. What was the GR date? What was the IR date? Okay,
Hmm.
but again, it is only possible if it is related to goods and you already created the PO in the system.
That's correct. Purchase order, right?
Okay, so that is an integrated system. But currently, what we are discussing, we are only discussing from the finance point of view. We are not discussing as of now that the PO was created for this service, right?
Okay, that's fine. Now I get your question. Okay, please go ahead.
Yes. So we are also going to talk about that scenario. What you said, that is the integration topic between MM and FI. So we will see one example on that also, like how the PO is created, how the good receipt is done, how the invoice receipt is done, and then finally how the payment is done. So that is the integrated scenario which we'll cover once we complete the normal FI process in AP and AR. Okay, so here, based on whatever is your requirement, you can go for document date, you can go for posting date, or you can go for entry date. So in my example, I'm picking it as a document date. Now these are the default things. Okay, so for example, if you want to tell the system whenever I'm using payment term ABC1, okay, whenever I'm using this payment term, by default, the payment should be blocked. Okay, I don't want to pay. If I use this payment term, then this means I don't want to pay till the approval is got from the manager. Okay, so whenever you use this payment term, by default, this invoice is blocked for payment. Your manager first need to approve this invoice before it can be paid to the vendor. Okay, those are the default settings. If you want, you can make it. And also the payment method. Like whenever I'm using this payment term, I want to tell the system that the payment would be done only through bank transfer. You cannot use checks. On the other hand, you can say, okay, if this payment term is there, I want to do the payments through check. So these are the default values which will be automatically captured with payment term. Okay, so just for example, I'm entering this both. So I want to block this. So block for payment B, and payment method. There are various payment methods available here. These are countries. Okay, so for India, I will see what are the different payment methods available. Country key for India is IN. Okay, so check, cash, and bank transfer. So let's say I want to tell the system that whenever I'll be using this payment term, by default, system should consider that the payment method is going to be bank transfer. Okay, and then comes this part where we need to specify this thing that we discussed. So 10%, 2%, 0% based on the number of days. This is where you need to write here. Okay, so 10% if payment is done in less than 5 days. Okay, 2% if payment is done within 15 days, and no percentage discount if the payment is done in less than 30 days. Okay, so this is where you can create three terms, three installments, or sorry, three, uh, what you can call this as three levels of payment term, which means how much discount you will get based on the percentage. Okay, so 5 days from what? 5 days from the document date. 15 days from what? 15 days from the document date. Okay, if I click on posting date, then 5 days from posting date, 15 days from posting date, 30 days from posting date. Okay, so let's try to save this and we will use it then. So now this payment term is created, and this payment term you can see can be used in customer as well as vendor. Now let's see how it works. So
How
if
this
I
block key will works, Vikram?
block key, as I told you, you are saying the system that by default, whenever I'm going to post this invoice with the payment term ABC1, by default system should block this particular invoice for payment. Okay, so system will not allow you to make the payment till the time this block is released by your manager.
Okay.
So you mean to say that this, let's say this particular vendor is not a trusted vendor. Okay, so for example, he when he sends the quotation, he sends some price, and when he actually sends the invoice, there is a deviation in the price. Okay, so you always want to monitor this vendor. You want to make sure that whenever he is sending the invoice, before we make the payment, we are verifying whether he has charged the price correctly or not. So that is the reason there might be the approval required, that yes, whether the payment should be made in full or we need to deduct some amount.
Okay. Thank you. That
Okay.
approval requirement you said, right? So that we should come here and we should take out this block here. How?
No, not here, at the invoice level.
Okay. Okay.
I'll show you in the invoice. So what
Okay.
I'll do
Sure.
now is I will try to book the invoice. So I'm
Okay.
going to vendor invoice once again, completely going out and coming again, so that we should be able to see the new payment term. So this is my vendor. Okay, now just concentrate on posting date and invoice date. So my posting date is 31st, sorry, my document date, that is invoice date, is 31st of October. Okay, this is, let's say, number 2. Okay, my posting date, I'm just keeping it different from the entry date. There are 3 dates. So my invoice date, that is document date, is 31st October. Posting date is 4th and entry date is 3rd. Right? So let's say this is my amount. Okay, and GL account, I'll just keep one GL account. Let's go for maybe electricity expenses or rent. Okay, so let's go for rent. Amount would be same, which is 1000 or 10,000, sorry. And then we need to enter the cost center, which is a mandatory field. Enter. This is fine. Let's go to the payment tab. Now in the payment tab, by default, it is taking payment term 0001. Now, any idea how the system is automatically taking this payment term 0001? Why it is not taking any other payment term? Because this is by default. Okay, but if I want to tell the system that whenever we are creating any invoice for this vendor, I want payment term ABC1. Okay, if I want to default the payment term for this vendor, that can be easily done in the vendor master data. So if you go to the transaction BP, okay, so this is where we created the vendor. So if you just change this vendor, okay, and which role? So vendor is created in FLVN00 role. If you go to company code tab, you can see the payment term here. Are you able to see it? Payment transaction, payment term. You can see this is default 0001. That is the reason this is being defaulted. Okay, so if I want to tell the system, no, I don't want 0001, I want ABC1 to be used. Okay, save it. Now next time you try to create a vendor invoice, okay, so FB60, this is your vendor invoice date, this number, this I'll keep it 4. Okay, amount, this GL. Okay, and cost center. Let's go to the payment tab. You can see it is automatically taking ABC1. Okay, so if you make the payment in 5 days, you will get 10% discount. If you make the payment in 15 days, you will get 2% discount. By default, it is 30 days. So the due date will be calculated always based on the last this one. Okay, so 30 days is something where you will not lose anything, you will not get anything. But if you pay in 5 days, you will earn 10%. If you pay in 15 days, you will earn 2%. Right? So this last one will be considered on the due date. Okay, so it is not saying that 5%, sorry, it is not saying 5 days. It is saying you are getting 30 days. But in addition, if you pay in 5 days, you will get this much discount. Okay, that is the reason this due on is calculated based on the last number of days. Okay, now if you see one thing, this baseline date is 31st of October. Why it is not 4th of November? Okay, why it is not 4th of November? Why it is not 3rd of November? Why it is not taking from the posting date? Why it is not taking from the entry date? The reason is, when we created this payment term, we very clearly told the system that the baseline date would be calculated based on the document date. Okay, and that is the reason system is considering this as the invoice date. Okay, let's try to change it. Let's try to change this to posting date. Okay, and just for example, because we are getting another error, I'll explain you what is this error. System is not allowing more than 5% discount. I'll tell you why. Okay, so I'm changing this to, if you pay in 5 days, 5%. If you pay in 15 days, then 2%. Okay, let's save it now. Now we made this change. Let's again go and create another invoice. So FB60, this vendor, invoice date. This one is, let's say, 3. Okay, this one I'll make it as 4. This is amount, GL account for expense, and the cost center. Okay, now let's go to the payment and see what is the difference. See, the baseline date is 4th of November. Why? Why 4th of November? Because 4th of November is our posting date, and in the settings of payment terms, we told the system that consider this 30 days from the date of posting date. Okay, this is very important scenario, very important question which always comes in the exam. You can expect at least one question on the payment terms. Okay, and normally most of the 80% of the time the question is baseline date can be calculated on 4 options. Which are those 4 options? So it is posting date, document date, entry date, and no default. These are the 4 things that you need to remember. Okay, another question which comes in exam on the payment terms is this one. So in the payment terms, what do we configure? So percentage and the number of days. Okay, maybe we will solve those questions. I have those questions which comes in the exam. So once we complete this AP part, what we will do is in one session we will only focus on important questions which are asked in the exam. Okay, so you will get the list of all those questions, important questions which you will be prepared, and once you know that, then like you will be able to clear your exam in 15-20 minutes. Although you get 3 hours of time to write the exam, but if you know what are the kind of questions which are asked, and if you are already aware of those important questions, then within 50, this is practical example because I have seen many of my students who start the exam within 15 minutes, they confirm that they are passed, right? So you need to think from the exam point of view also whenever we are discussing about a particular topic. Okay, so now if I go to this invoice, you can see in the payment tab 5, 2, and 0%. Okay, so this is what is payment term. If I save this, okay, so now the document has been saved. If you go to document and display, okay, if you want to see the due date, again you can change the layout. Okay, or maybe instead of looking at it here, what we can do is we can go to FBL1 and report. Okay, and here we will see the particular invoice that we just now posted. I think it was posted on 4th of November. That is the reason it is not showing. So 4th of November, execute. Yes, you can see this invoice. Okay, so here, if I want to change the layout to the one that I created yesterday, I'll be able to see the due date column. So due date is falling on 4th of December 2019. Okay, so if you are making the payment after 15 days, you have to make the payment of entire amount. If you are making the payment of this particular invoice in less than 5 days, okay, then you will be getting 5% discount. And if you are making the payment after 5 days but before 15 days, then you will be getting 2% discount. Let's see how it will work. So if I go to F-53, okay, before that, if I double click on this invoice, let's see the payment block and payment method. See, these are coming by default from this payment term. When we configured this payment term, we told the system that block this invoice and use the payment method T. Okay, so what will happen with this now? If I try to make the payment of this invoice, if I go to F-53, enter, okay, and let's say I'm making the payment of this invoice in less than 5 days. So this invoice was posted on 4th I'm trying to make the payment on 6th. Okay, and this is
Not
a
gonna
bank
allow.
account, so yes,
Not gonna allow.
yeah, it will allow. As long as the posting period is open, it will allow.
No, but we put a payment block.
No, payment block is different thing, so it will come now.
Okay.
Yes. So amount we want to pay is, let's say we already know we are going to get 5% discount, so it is 9,500. Okay, value date would be important, so 6/11, sorry, 6/11/2019, and this is our vendor. Okay, let's try to click on process open items. Just the warning message you can ignore, just press enter. Okay, so you can see it is showing you this 5% discount, so this is matching. Let's try to do document and simulate. Okay, it is again asking you the same thing what it was asking you yesterday for 5% cash discount, but since we already configured, we should not get this message. Let's see what is the problem. So if you remember yesterday I told you click here, okay, and click on proceed button. So chart of account ABC0, cash discount received. Yesterday we have created cash discount taken, right? I think yesterday it was related to customer, right? Cash discount given. Yesterday we created cash discount given. Am I right?
No, we took receipt
Is it? Let's
because
try.
we paid 10,000 and then we got 2% or something back.
No. It was expense. Expense means we have given cash discounts given. See, this GL account we created yesterday. So today we need to create cash discounts received.
Okay.
Right. So cash discount received would be my revenue account. Okay. So save this, and we have to map this here in this configuration. Okay. So save it and enter the GL account as 3001. Save. Okay. So now if you come back and you try to simulate once again, you can see cash discount received is automatically determined. Okay, whether it will allow you to make the payment or not, let's try, because I'll tell you later on why it is allowing. So click on post. Okay, it has allowed you. So even though the invoice was blocked, system has still allowed you to make the payment. The reason is in manual payment, this is called as manual payment. What we have just now done, this is a manual payment. In manual payment, if a user is trying to make the payment of the invoice which is blocked, it will not stop you. Okay, it will just it is user's responsibility to check whether I need to make the payment or not. But this check of whether the payment is blocked or not, this is performed in case of automatic payment. So when you are trying to make payments of 100 suppliers at the same time, you want to make sure that the system verifies that there are no blocked payments, there are no invoices with the blocked payment option, right? So in case of automatic payment, we will see this example where blocked payments are not paid. Okay, so normally in case of manual payments, system allows you to make the payment of those invoices even if they are blocked, because system is expecting that much level of responsibility from the business user who is making the payment, right? But in case of automatic, there is no control on user. Automatic is SAP is paying automatically to the suppliers. SAP system is automatically paying. So if SAP system is automatically paying, system is not expecting that the user is going to check each and every invoice. Okay, so at that time, if the payment is blocked, system will not allow you to pay. Okay, so this payment blocked and all we will see in case of automatic payment. So as of now, just remember we can default the blocked indicator as well as payment method from the payment term. Okay, how to use that we will see when we will talk about the automatic payment program. So is this clear now? Now you understood what are the payment terms. You understood what are the different kinds of discounts, like cash discounts, how to give the cash discounts, how to set up the cash discounts in the payment terms based on the number of days. Okay, so one more thing which I want to show you. We got two errors. Yesterday we got one error for cash discounts given, and today we got the error on cash discounts received. So we simply clicked on proceed button and done the configuration. But this is not true for the user. If a user is trying to make this transaction, user don't have the access to SPRO. So if he click on proceed, he will not get anything. Okay, so user will come to you. User will tell you that I am facing this error. And you as a consultant, you are not supposed to make the payment. So you cannot also try to do this activity on your own. Right, so you need to know the path. You need to know the path where I can go and perform this configuration for cash discounts received and cash discounts taken. So that configuration is available in SPRO itself. So if you go to IMG, again this is part of financial accounting only, AP and AR, okay, business transactions, and you are making the payments. So either you are making the payments or you are receiving the payments. So incoming payment, outgoing payment. Let's go for outgoing payment. And you are doing manual outgoing payment, right? If you are using F-53, it is called as manual outgoing payment. Within this, you can see there is let's go for overpayment, underpayment first. Define accounts for payment differences. Okay, define the reason codes. Okay, maybe this one is different. I just want to show you those configurations which are related to cash discounts given and taken. Yeah, here, sorry. So this is not only for manual payment. Whenever you are giving the discounts, those are related to manual as well as automatic. And that is the reason they are available here in outgoing payment global settings. Okay, so define accounts for overpayments, define accounts for exchange rate differences, define accounts for rounding differences. There are a lot of different accounts which are available here. Okay, but we want define accounts for cash discounts taken. Okay, define accounts for cash discount taken. It will take you to the same screen that we just now configured. See this one. So for each type of account, SAP has provided this transaction. SKE is for cash discount received. Similarly, if you go for incoming payments, which we configured yesterday, incoming payment global setting, you can see define accounts for cash discount granted. We have given the discount, right? So here it is SKT. SKE is for given. SKT is for, sorry, SKE is for taken, discounts taken, and SKT is for discounts given. Right, so this is where you need to configure different kind of GL accounts. Define accounts for overpayments, define accounts for exchange rate. I'll show you one example of exchange rate also today. Okay, define account for rounding differences, define accounts for bank charges. If you have the bank charges, so you are making the payment of to the vendor, you need to make the payment of 1000, but bank is also charging you additional 5. Okay, which is normal in India. If you make the payment in IMPS, bank charges you 5 rupees extra, right? So that 5 rupees can be automatically configured here. So like where exactly this 5 rupees will go, where in which account it would get posted. Okay, so we will talk about this. Don't worry about this. Just understand this cash discount received and cash discount taken as of now. So that completes our first topic, which is on payment terms. Any question on payment terms now? You understood what are payment terms, where exactly it needs to be configured. We can use it in customer as well as vendor. What is the baseline date? Baseline date can be calculated based on document date, posting date, entry date, right? And where exactly you need to specify the percentages and the number of days. Okay, so this is what we configured in the payment term. You can create whatever number of payment terms you want based on the business requirement. You should not create some payment terms and then you are not using it unnecessarily, it will create confusion. Because for user, whenever user is trying to create a document, okay, so whenever a user is making creating the vendor invoice, if you create multiple payment terms, if he does F4, he will get confused which exactly I should use. So there should be only those payment terms which are really required. If you think that the payment term is created but it is not being used, it is maybe you can request the meeting with the end users to understand whether this can be deleted to avoid the confusion. Okay.
Vikram,
Also, I
had
told you. Yeah, sorry. Go ahead.
if you go to the previous screen that we were on the payment terms.
Payment terms. Okay.
Yeah. So what is this fixed day and additional months? These.
Yeah, I'm coming to this. This part I'm coming to. We have not discussed this part till now.
Okay, sorry.
Okay. One more thing which I think Chandrika asked earlier, that if I want to unblock a particular invoice for payment. So when we created the invoice, okay, where was that? Okay, let's go for FB03. Okay, to see the invoice which is already created. So here I will enter, I think it was something 19. Okay, if you don't know the number, click on the document list. And you can tell the system, I want to see all those documents which are created with document type KR, which means vendor invoices, which are created on entered on today's date. So 03/11/2019. Okay, so this is the document that we posted today. If you double click on the vendor line item, you can see payment block and payment method. Now, if I want to remove this payment block, go to the change mode. Now it is not allowing since this is already payment is already done. This document is already cleared. That is the reason it is not allowing you to unblock this particular invoice. Let me show you one more example. So I'll go to FB60 once again. Okay, same vendor, same invoice date. Invoice number would be different. This is amount. Okay, and this is account. This is a cost center, and let's try to save it. Okay, so this document has been created now. If I double click, it is showing me payment block B. Let's click on the change mode. You can see it is allowing you to change. So if you want to unblock, just click here and free for payment, blank. Blank means now it is free for payment. So even from the automatic payment program, there will not be any issue. This invoice will be paid without any problem. So your manager's responsibility, manager or maybe user, it is not necessary. There is no such restriction who will approve it. If you want that restrictions, then again you need a workflow process, okay, which will be configured by ABAP. So in that workflow process, it would be very clear who is going to approve, up to what amount, who is going to approve the things, right? But you don't need to worry about that. Just remember, whoever has the access, he can go to the change mode of the vendor invoice and he can remove the payment block from there. Okay, as long as the invoice is open. Once the invoice is paid, there is no question of blocking or unblocking the payment, right? Because the payment is already done. Chandrika, you got answer now? How to open the
Yes.
invoice for payment?
Yeah, got it. Thank you.
Okay. Okay, now coming to the question which Nafis asked. We covered all these things, but we have not covered this thing. This is normally very rarely used. Okay, so if you are able to understand, good. If not, maybe once you once you become the expert in all other things, then we can again concentrate here. See what exactly is this is. We said, let me take this example. We are saying 5 days. 5 days from what? Either document date or posting date or entry date. Okay, but There are some customers who will say, no, I don't want this 5 days from document date, posting date, or entry date. I have a rule. In many companies, there is a rule. Whatever invoices are posted before 30th of month, okay, whatever invoices are posted before 30th of month, they will be paid 15th of the next month. Okay, and whatever invoices are posted after, which means 1 to 30th, they will be paid again in the 15th of next month. Okay, so for example, in this case, if the invoice is posted on 29th of October, it would be paid on 15th of November, right? But if the invoice is posted on 1st of November, can you tell me when exactly it will be paid?
December?
15th of December, right?
Yes.
Right, so there is a deadline. Before 30th, you will get the payment in 15 days. If you do it after the 30th, then you have to wait for 1.5 months, right? So this is a fixed date. This is a fixed date that our payments are only done once in a month. Okay, so irrespective of what is your document date, what is your posting date, what is your entry date, our payments will be only done on the 15th of month. Okay, so if you want to configure that, what you can do here is you can tell the system that my fixed day my baseline is fixed day, that is 15th. 15th is my fixed date, and additional months if you want. Okay, so additional months means you can tell the system that 15th of next month or 15th of current month, that you need to specify here. So let's see this. If you want to know the details of a particular field, just click on F1 button in your keyboard. So number of months which the system adds to the calendar month of the baseline date for payment. Okay, so let's take one example here now. So I will say no default, and this is a fixed day. Okay, let's try to save it. Okay, now even I think these are not valid. Then if it is fixed days, then even these are not valid. Okay, but let's try what happens. This is very rare scenario. There are very few companies who follow this. So invoice date is 10th of November 2019. Sorry, this is definitely required. So 10th of, let's say I'm keeping the same date. Reference is maybe 5, and this is the amount. Okay, forget about all these things because let's concentrate on the payment tab. Enter. So now system is asking you baseline date. Baseline date we kept is no default. Okay, so we want to specify the baseline date, which is, let's say, 10th of November 2019. Enter. No, there's something wrong. Just give me a minute. So baseline date calculation is 15. No additional month. Posting date. Vendor, invoice, reference, amount. Let's go to the payment. Enter. Yes, can you see it now? So although my posting date is 10th, sorry, my posting date is 3rd, but it is not considering 3rd. See what I specified here, that my logic is based on posting date, but my posting date is 3rd. Okay, by default, if I don't provide here anything, then what will happen? My baseline date will become 3rd of the month, right? My baseline date will become 3rd of the month. But what is happening here? My baseline date is becoming 15th of that same month. Why? Because we told the system that the baseline date would be fixed date, 15th of the same month. If I add one additional month, what will happen? My baseline date will become 15th of December. Okay, let's try once again. So vendor, okay, again posting date is 3rd of November, but it will show you 15th of December. Why? 15th is a fixed date plus one additional month, right? Is it clear now?
Yes, thank you.
Yes. Okay, so this was about payment term. Now let's go to the next topic, which is partial payment. Okay, so we already created one invoice, right? We already have one open invoice, or we paid already. No problem. We'll create one more invoice. We will proceed with this itself. So this is the GL account and this is the amount and this is the cost center. Let's save it. Okay, so now we have this invoice. Let's go and see what is the balance of this particular vendor. So I'll go to transaction FK10N. FK10N. Okay, and this is my vendor number. Execute. So the balance is 20,000. Okay, maybe there are two invoices. Let's see. Yeah, there are two invoices which are open. Invoice number 3 and invoice number 4, ending with 3 and 4. Right. Now, let's say I want to make the payment of this invoice, which I posted just now, 4th one. Although the due date is 14th of Jan 2020. Okay, but let's say I want to make the payment of this particular invoice. And I want to pay only how much? I want to pay only 5,000. I received the 5,000. I have not received the complete amount. I only received 5,000. Okay. So in this particular case, let's go to F-53. Okay. Your document date would be, maybe I'll keep the same date of the payment. Okay, this is a request from YouTube. Okay, so document date is, let's say, 15th of 15th of Jan 2020, but I think this period will be closed. So let's take this month date itself. So 30th of November 2019. Again 30th of November 2019. Document type is KZ. Bank is this one. Amount I am only getting 5,000 or only paying 5,000. 30th of 11 2019. Okay, for which account? For this account. Process open items. Just ignore this warning message. Okay, and you can see there are two invoices which are due. Okay, so let's say I'll make the payment of this first invoice. So first of all, both are selected by default. I will deselect this by double clicking on this. So now the invoice amount is 10,000, but I'm making the payment only for 5,000. Okay, so it is showing the balance and it will not allow me to go ahead. I need to tell the system, okay, don't worry, this is not a full payment, this is a partial payment. Okay, how can I do that? There is a separate tab for partial payment here. You need to click on this partial payment tab. Okay, and here just double click. Okay, because you already entered the amount in the previous screen, just double click and system will automatically adjust the amount. So now you are telling the system that, okay, although the total invoice price is 10,000, but I am making the payment for only 5,000, and this is a partial payment. Okay, so now this balance is 0 and you can just save it. So payment has been done. What should be the balance now if I go to FK10N? What was the balance earlier? 20,000. We made the payment of 5,000. So what should be the new balance?
20 or 15
15,000.
if it
So
was
execute.
20.
So now it is 15, right? Now, what should happen to the invoice? Last time when we made the payment, that invoice was cleared. This time, what do you think? The invoice will be cleared or not?
No, the 5,000 will still remain outstanding, right?
Right.
Unless we
So,
adjust it.
right. So it will show you two lines, one for invoice and second for payment. You can see earlier it was showing only one line. Now it is showing one line of 10,000 minus, which is credit. Okay. And it is showing one line of debit. So if you see the total balance, it is 5,000 for this particular invoice, right? But both the lines will remain open because even though you make the payment, that payment cannot clear the invoice and your invoice cannot be cleared in full. That is the reason both your payment line item as well as your invoice line item will remain open. Okay, and they will be only cleared when you make the full payment. Okay, so let's take another example. So in the next run, I will make the complete payment. So I'll go to F-53. Okay, this is my document date. Same way, I'll select my payment date. Bank account. 5,000 is pending, right? So I'll enter 5,000, value date, and the vendor account. So process open items. Ignore the warning message, press enter. And here I need to select, first of all, I need to deselect this because I'm not doing anything on this invoice. Now you can see one is the line for payment, second is the line for invoice. So I want to settle this both. Okay, system is showing that, okay, there was an invoice of 10,000, but there is also one open payment. So do you want to settle both? I'll say yes. So if I select both, then I only need to pay remaining 5,000. Okay, so if I save it now, all the three lines will get cleared. So if you go to vendor line item display now, what should be the balance? 10,000, right? So balance is 10,000. If you double click on this, see it is showing you there is no open line item because this 10,000, 5,000 and 5,000, these three lines, 1, 2, and I think 3. No, 1 minute. First line is this one. Just concentrate on 19.0. Sorry, there is a clearing document. Let's bring the clearing document here. So select the layout and I'll go with this one. So you can see this last three line items. They are cleared. So 10,000 invoice and 5,000 payments. They are all cleared with each other using this latest payment document number that we posted for 5,000. Okay, so this is called as partial payment. If you are not getting the complete payment, you can make the payment in partial also.
But when you make a partial payment, you don't get the discount, do you?
When you make the partial payment, you will be only able to get the discount of the payment that you made. Okay. So if you are making the payment of 5,000, then it will not be adjusted now. As of now, it will accept 5,000 whole amount. It will not take the discount into consideration. Maybe let's try. So let's say if I want to make the payment of the remaining invoice where I'm getting the discount. Let's say I'm making the payment of 5,000. Okay, so now if I make the total payment, I'll get the discount of 500. But if I go to the partial payment and double click here, See, it is not considering discount as of now. Discounts will be calculated after, when you make the full payment. At that time, whatever discount was applicable, it will get calculated. Right?
So following up
Because
on this,
discount is
following up on
sorry.
following up on our payment terms, the 5,000 I
Mm-hmm,
paid within 5 days, so I got 5%.
mm-hmm,
And the
mm-hmm,
next 5,000 I paid within 15 days, so I got
mm-hmm.
2%. So
No,
this,
that will be calculated, but that would be adjusted at the final amount that you are paying.
so when I get the second 5,000, when I pay it, so they're gonna give me 2% on that. That is like $100,
Right,
and
right.
and on the 5,000 that I paid, $250 plus $100, so $350 is they're gonna give me when I do the second payment within that period. Correct, right?
Exactly, exactly.
Thank you,
Yes,
thank
yes.
you.
You can actually try that scenario once. So what I wanted
So
to tell
Vikram,
you
I don't want to
now,
slow you down. Go ahead. I don't want to slow you down. I
yes,
just want to understand conceptually.
yes. Thanks for asking. So not a problem. So now, I want to also tell you there is something called as residual payment. And again, this is one of the very important question in exam. Again, most of the time this question is asked. What is the difference between the partial payment and the residual payment? Okay, so let me show you one more scenario which is exactly similar. Okay, so first I will create one invoice. Okay, this time I will create an invoice without any discount. I will use just to avoid the confusion on the discount part. So what I'll do is I'll create the invoice and enter the amount, whatever amount it is. This is my GL account, again amount, and then the cost center. Okay, and if I go to the payment, by default it will take ABC1, but as I told you, I just want to avoid any confusion and I will use 0001, which means this invoice is due immediately. No discount, immediately you need to pay. You can see on the same date. So save this. Okay, so now if I go to FK10N, what should be the balance? Balance was 10,000 already, and I paid, I created another invoice of 10,000. So the total balance would be, why it is showing 10,000? Just give me a minute. Okay. This is the one that I posted now. No, this is older one.
No,
What about the one
this
that
is the
we,
future one. That is going to go future. That's
right? So where
2020.
exactly is the one which we posted now? Let's go and see in the FB03. It will show me the last document which we posted. Is it posted or not? Our document is not posted, I think. Why?
Vikram, if you go to your view, Vikram view, I think that will give us.
No. That has nothing to do. That is a view with this related to layout.
Yeah, but it gives me like, when clearing and all those, right? It gives much details to see quickly.
Yes, but I think the invoice is not created at all. Maybe something went wrong. So we will try to create once again.
Save.
FD60, this invoice, and then this one amount 4003 cost center payment, and I will make this as 0001. Enter. Let's try to save it. And now it is posted. Earlier there was something wrong. So if I go to document and display, yes, now I can see the invoice. So the total balance should be 20 now. The 10 was the previous one, and the 10 that we just now posted. Okay, so 20. So let's double click on this 20, and now this is the one that we created. So again, same thing what we discussed earlier, same way like partial payment. So total invoice amount is 10,000, but I'm not going to pay in full. Let's say I want to only pay 4,000. Okay, so what I'll do, I will again go to F-53 to make the payment. Okay, here I will enter the document date, whatever it is, bank account from where I'm making the payment, and the amount, how much amount I'm paying. I'm paying 4,000. Okay, value date will come definitely, account, process open item, and as I told you, I'm not touching this first invoice. I'm only going to pay for this particular invoice, right? And that too partially. So total amount is 10,000, but I want to pay for 4,000. So in the previous example, what we have done, because this is a partial payment, we clicked on partial payment and we double clicked here, right? This was the example of partial payment. Now instead of doing partial, there is another option of residual. Click on this residual item, and again in partial payment we double clicked here, right? Same way in residual payment we will double click here. It is showing you the remaining amount. So out of 10,000 you are paying 4,000, but the remaining would be 6,000. That is called as residual value. Residual means remaining value, right? So if you save it, okay, it is giving you some blue message, means something is mandatory field which is missing. It is asking you for text, so just provide some text and save it. Okay, so the process wise everything is same as partial payment. Only thing is, now if you go to the vendor line items, or if you just go to the balance would be how much? Out of 20 we paid 4, remaining would be 16,
16.
right? If I execute it and double click, can you tell me what is the difference here? This is the previous line, don't worry about this. It is only showing one line open. In case of partial, what was happening? It was showing the invoice also is open and the payment that we made is also open. Now what it is showing is invoice and payment. The invoice was 10,000. Just give me a minute, let me show you. The one that we posted now is what? Document number 15.5. So if you see this 15.5 here, can you see 15.5? Yes, this one. So it is showing that this invoice is already cleared. Okay, this is the payment document of 10,000, which is clearing which invoice? Let's bring the clearing information also. You can see 15.05. So this was an invoice which is cleared, and this is the payment that we made which is also cleared. So the original invoice as well as the payment that you created has been cleared, and it has created one additional line which is open. Residual means one additional line of the remaining amount will remain open. Your original invoice and payment will get closed.
Vikram, why isn't it showing the 4 grand that we paid, the 4,000?
It is not showing 4,000 because it is considering the residual value. See, overall balance, if you see, this is minus 6,000 and the payment is plus 6,000. So overall this is 4.
Yes. So plus 10 minus 6 is 4.
Exactly.
But shouldn't it show the check amount that I paid in 4,000?
That is the difference between partial and residual. In partial amount, when you make the payment using the partial method, in partial method it will show you what amount you paid, and that amount will remain open, and your original invoice will also remain open, right? If you are making the payment using partial mode, then your original invoice will remain open, and the payment that you made of 4,000, that will also remain open. Am I right? So overall balance will become 6,000. but both the lines will remain open, right?
And in residual payment, I'm just taking notes.
In residual payment, your original invoice will get cleared, okay, and there will be only one item which will remain open, that is a residual value. Okay, that is the basic difference between partial and residual. In partial payment, let me again write it here. This is a very important question which comes in exam most of the times. When you make the partial payment, original invoice and partial payment both will remain open. In case of residual, original invoice is cleared and residual item of remaining value will kept or will remain open. This is a basic difference. Okay, so even if you just remember one line, for partial, original invoice will remain open. For residual, original invoice will get cleared. This is the basic difference between partial payment and residual payment. So there are various kinds of questions that they ask on this. So they will give the example. A user has made a payment and original invoice and partial payment both are open. So is it a partial payment or residual payment? So you have to write partial payment. They can give the example. User has made the payment and original invoice has been cleared. This is the example of partial payment or residual payment. So you have to tell it residual payment, right? So this kind of questions they ask in certification exam.
Thank you.
Clear now?
Thank you. Yes.
Okay. Okay, so that was about partial payment and residual payment. So maybe next last topic for today. We are already late, but let's continue this last topic. This is not very difficult to understand. Okay, so maybe I'll just give you one example. This is applicable for both customers as well as vendors. So your customer or your vendor sent you an invoice of 1,000. Later on, you realized that vendor charged you more than the agreement. Okay, so you agreed for 800, but vendor has given you the invoice of 1,000, which you already booked. Okay, vendor has sent you the invoice which you already booked. Now system is showing you need to pay 1,000 to your vendor, but you know that no, this is wrong. I only need to pay 800. So what you will do, you will create a credit note in the system that 200 I need to recover from this vendor, so that whenever a payment would be done, it would be only done for 800. Okay, so for this, what I'll do is, just to avoid any confusion, I will clear first all the line items which are already open. Whatever open is there, I will clear it so that we can concentrate on one activity at a time. So whatever is the remaining amount, I am not sure. Let's first check what is the remaining amount, or maybe let's enter something and we will see. 10,000. So the remaining amount is 15,500. Okay, if I'm paying today, I need to pay 15,500. So what I'll do is, I will go to this one, double click on this, and I will enter 15,500. Or if I just enter star here, system will automatically determine the amount. Okay, so back, process open items. So now I am making the complete payment so that my vendor balance is now 0. So if you go to FK10N, there will not be any balance now because we paid all the amount which was open, right? Everything is 0. Okay, now let's create a new invoice with this example. So vendor has sent us the invoice of 1000. We will create the invoice of 1000 in the system. So FB60, this is my vendor, this is the invoice date, and amount is 1000. Okay, let's keep this number separate. 7 GL account 1000, cost center. Okay, and in the payment I will, again, just to avoid any confusion, I will just keep it 0001 and save it. Enter. Okay, so the document has been created. Now what should be the balance? What should be the balance for this vendor?
10,000, that's what we gave, right?
1000, right?
Sorry.
Yeah, 1000 that we posted just now, right? So the total balance for this vendor is 1000. Now we realize that no, we are not going to pay 1000. So we want the credit note of 200. So that credit note, what you can do is, again, within FB60 itself, okay, you don't need to go anywhere else. Even in FB60 transaction, you can see there is an option here. Normally we go for invoice, but if you want to do the credit memo, you can click on credit memo. Okay, automatically this will convert to credit memo now. Okay, or the other option is, instead of FB60, use FB65. Similarly for vendor, instead of FB70, use FB75. Right, so it is up to you whether you want to use the same transaction, that is FB60, and you want to change this here, or you want to directly go to FB65. Okay, so vendor, document date with reference would be same, amount is 200. Okay, so here this is amount, sorry, this is account, this is amount, this is the cost center. And you can also do one thing in the payments tab. Whenever you are creating a credit note, you can provide the reference of the original invoice. Okay, so what was the original invoice that we created?
$1,000.
No, original invoice, not amount, number. This is the original invoice number.
Oh, yeah.
So system knows that you are
6.
creating the credit note against this invoice. So here you can enter this, enter. Okay, so you can see 200 would be deducted now. So we have just posted the credit note. Okay, so now if I go and see what would be the balance, 1000 minus 200 equal to 800. Execute, it is showing 800. If you double click, it will show you one line of invoice, document type KR is invoice, and one line of 200, which is document type KG, which is nothing but credit note. Okay, so invoice and credit note. Okay, and now when you make the payment, you will be making the payment of only 800. How? So if you go to F-53, document date, this is our bank account. We are making the payment of 800. Value date, account, and if you see process open item, it will show you two lines, 1000 and 200. So it is showing you invoice as well as credit note. Okay, once you save, so you made the remaining payment to the vendor. So this is how credit notes works in SAP. Okay, so what is the transaction code? FB65 for vendor, and FB75 for customer. Otherwise, look and feel everything is same as invoice.
I have a question. Generally, we have to do like we have to do the programming. What do you guys call it? Integration. Integrate. Like we have to prepare the payment terms and all these. But for credit notes, that's a real thing. So you don't need to do any like configuration for the credit notes in SPRO, like in IMG, right?
No, there is no separate configuration that you need to know for credit notes.
Relevant.
Right. I think this question yesterday, Shekhar, you asked, right? Credit notes. So you got all the information on how the credit notes are processed?
Yes.
Okay.
Vikram, I have one question.
Yes, please go ahead.
About advance payment. Suppose we got a invoice of 10,000. When we received goods for that, we already paid 1,000 in advance, and remaining 9,000 we are paying it when we got the invoice. So how?
So advance. Yeah, you are talking about advance. We have still not discussed the advance topic.
Okay.
We are going to discuss. Next topic is advance only. Next topic is advance and automatic payments.
Okay, okay. And suppose we want to pay, suppose invoice payment due date is 30 days, but we want to pay 50% in 15 days and another 15% in 15 days. So how that
is
configured?
Installments.
Okay.
That is called as installments.
Yes, yes.
Yes, yes. So that also can be, yeah, that also can be configured, but again that is a very rare scenario. So, but since yes, it is in the payment terms itself. If you see this payment terms, we discussed OBB8, right? Payment terms for OBB8. Similarly, there is another transaction which is OBB9. This is for installment payment terms. Okay, I'll explain you. Don't worry about this. We'll talk about this.
Vikram, can I ask another question?
Okay.
Yes, please.
Vikram, when we are making the payments, residual, partial, and all that, there is another tab that probably is for withholding tax.
Yeah.
So does that relate to? I'm just trying to understand. You don't need to show. Is that related to, let's say, when we do the importing things and the government requires, like, the person who has imported, he withholds the imported tax from while paying, before paying to the creditor, right? So they have a rule for that in many countries. Is that related to that?
Yes, yes, yes. Withholding tax is any kind of tax that you are withholding. So in India also, withholding tax is very common. So I'll give you the example. Let's say your supplier has sent you the invoice of 1,000.
Yes.
Okay, and your government says whatever invoices you are getting for a particular service, you don't need to pay your vendor in full. You pay 950 and 50 rupees you pay directly to government.
Okay.
As a tax.
Okay.
So when we are making the payment, we are deducting that 50 and we are separately paying to government.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay. So I just wanted to understand conceptually. Thank you, sir.
Yeah. Okay, so we can close today's session. I think we covered some of the important topics today. But again, as I told you, now we are in that stage that if we don't practice, then definitely the further topics which are advanced topics in AP and AR like Dunning, the automatic payment program, they will become very difficult to understand. So please practice a lot. Okay, whatever time you are getting, please practice in the system. Most of the time, don't go through the documentations and all as of now. Just concentrate on the system, because if you know the system, if you know how to operate the system, later on if you go through the documents, you'll be able to correlate each and everything. But if you just look at the theoretical topics, then it would be difficult for you to digest those topics also, and you will not be able to work in the system. So concentrate most of your time on the system. Whatever we have done, try to create multiple invoices, try to create multiple payments, try some partial, try some residual payments. Okay, so whatever topics we discussed till now, I want you to focus more and more on the practicals, hands-on, from now onwards.
Vikram,
Yes.
I was thinking like, like we just did the chart of accounts. We just hardly used like many GL accounts. I
Mm-hmm.
was trying to do a full blown one, and I got stuck thinking,
Mm-hmm.
okay, how do I do the retained earnings account? Like,
Mm-hmm.
you know what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm. No, I got your point. So what is the next question? So retained earning account?
Yeah. So like, retained earning account is there in the liability section, but like,
Mm-hmm.
in retained earnings, there is some things like you can break it into prior period adjustments and all that, like, like all that, whatever, mumbo jumbo. You can break it
Mm-hmm.
down in addition to like whatever, like in that account, especially in the liabilities, the owner's equity side.
Mm-hmm.
I'm just wondering like, how does it work out, like in a account, like in an accounting scenario?
You mean to say what would be the functionality of the retained earning, right?
Yeah, generally, like when you do it, like a lot of the times, like, I don't know about Tally, let's say QuickBooks, all that return earnings is already given, or you're just doing a sample, right? Most of the time,
Mm-hmm.
we have a sample company chart of accounts, and we copy over and we do it.
Mm-hmm.
But you have taught
Mm-hmm.
us to do it from scratch, learn it from scratch. So I was trying to
Yes.
do it, and I was just thinking, okay, if I want to break retained earnings and, like, I want to, or let's say for a non-for-profit, right? In non-for-profit, you have a general reserve, and then you're restricted and it's partially restricted, and like, blah, blah, blah. Same thing of
Mm-hmm.
retained earnings. How do you, like, play around with that in SAP? But then I got lost.
Okay. No, see, the thing is, even in SAP provides a sample company code, and you can copy those sample to start with. But since we are learning from scratch, it is a good idea because we are not dependent on, like, you will be able to copy everything, but you will never concentrate on why exactly it was given by SAP. And that is the reason we created from scratch. Now, coming to the question on retained earning, see, retained earning we just created as of now. We have not done anything on the retained earning apart from the creation and the configuration. The reason is, you must be knowing, this retained earning process is carried out last in the year. Okay, so once everything is closed, then only the retained earning will get transferred. Your whatever profit and loss has been incurred, that would be transferred to the retained earning.
Hmm.
So if you want to focus on that particular area, as of now, just think one thing, that how many types of retained earning accounts you want, how you want to bifurcate your retained earning into multiple parts. First of all, whether that is required. So simple thing, what you can do is, whatever existing system you are using,
Hmm.
QuickBooks, Tally, or any other ERP, just go and check how many retained earning accounts are there.
No, there are
Okay.
numerous, but like, actually, my problem, let me be very specific, then you'll understand. Like,
Mm-hmm.
income minus expenses is my residual profit, right? And let's say I do
Right.
dividends and whatever, and I have my retained earnings, right? So there should be,
Mm-hmm.
nobody can touch that retained earnings. It should remain static. However, let's say I've got a super loss or something, and extraordinary circumstances or something, and that
Mm-hmm.
had happened the year before. So year
Mm-hmm.
before had already closed, my retained earnings was there, but that retained earnings that I had reported to the shareholders is under question. So I have to do a prior period adjustment. So I,
Mm-hmm.
I I don't want to affect the retained earnings. They're going to remain static, but I have to have something in, like, um, in prior period adjustments, that the adjustments go there.
Yeah.
And my retained
Yes.
earnings,
Even
whatever
even
it is.
right. So retained earnings, in that case, one retained earning account is more than enough. But apart from that, just to perform the adjustments, you can create any number of accounts which
Okay.
will be used during the month end and year end. So whatever adjustments you want to make, those can be created as a normal GL accounts.
So my question was actually to specify, can I specify in my return any account that all my things roll over to, let's say, some X account,
Yes,
but
yes, yes.
can be touched
Yes.
there, but for adjustments to return earnings under X, there may be a Y account, and do the adjustment
Mm-hmm.
on return earnings in the Y account, but never the X account. Is there a thing like, in GL grouping, mapping? I don't know. Like, is there anything there? I'm sure there has to be.
No, see, what we can do is, in that case, if you want to restrict that no user should be able to post anything in this particular account, we can block that account
No,
for the
not like
users.
it.
Hello?
Yes, sorry.
No, I was saying that if you want that, okay, this particular GL account should not be touched, this should be only touched for the specific kind of postings, then we can block the other users and we can only allow the user who is responsible for that account to touch that account. That is also possible.
Okay.
That can
Okay.
be controlled via authorization group, which is normally provided again by basis. So what we can do is we can say, okay, this particular user belongs to this authorization group, and only this authorization group is responsible to touch this particular GL account.
Okay. So probably we'll come into that later at some point.
Yes.
Okay. Sorry. Thank you for your time.
Okay. Okay then. Thank you all. We will meet on next Saturday, same time. Thank you. Bye.
Thank you, everyone.
Bye, everyone.
Bye.
Thank you. Bye bye.
Bye.